Welcome to another episode of Laymen's Guide to the World Cup. I'm your host, Henry, and here we on to Group J. We got the champions, the champions of the previous World Cup, along with some interesting teams. It's very top-heavy with Argentina, but I think there's two teams below it that potentially can cause problems for Argentina and other teams in this World Cup. So we'll take a look at them first. So let's start with Argentina, the big boys. Can they repeat what happened in Qatar here? That's a big question. Going into this tournament, talent-wise, they're not as favorited as a lot of European teams. But I think when that's something I've been thinking about lately is we're favoriting these European teams, but then I'm watching on Twitter and looking on Instagram and Facebook and seeing that their players are having a hard time in this temperature. So the question then asks, will that be an X factor for these South American teams and these African teams, even North American teams, to take advantage? Even us Americans, we're used to this, all the time. So can we take advantage of this heat? And will that play a factor in Argentina retaining this title? Potentially, yeah. But the hard part on the other side of the coin is that this is an older team than what was at the last World Cup. There's a couple players that have retired. There's a couple players still playing, but they're not playing as high as level. So, really, what will happen? So, they're a three-time world champion at 78, 86, and then this last one. 86 was the Maradona era. So the question is, can Messi be better than Maradona? Can he get 2 World Cups? It's possible. This is what he has to prove. But the thing is, Messi is not a spry chicken. He's 78, or not 78. He's 38 years old. He's not as young. You start to see a little bit of the knocks and him not defending as much, and he's just being pure attack. So, will that play a factor? But the thing is, this Argentina team has not let up after winning the title. They won the Copa America, and then they went first place in their qualifying group for this World Cup, which I've already told you before. CONMEBOL's qualifying is the hardest. Because it's a constantly competition of high-level teams trying to leapfrog each other, and one win can change the whole table. So, them going in first is a good sign for them. And also the other thing is it's not all on Messi. You have Emiliano Martinez, which he was quite a character in the last World Cup. It's just quite a character as a goalkeeper in general. There's new taunting rules for goalkeepers because of him, because he's a little much sometimes. But then you also have Alexis McAllister in the midfield, who plays really well for Liverpool and considered one of the best center mids in the world. And so you still have a lot of these pieces, and some of these players have matured and become better, like Alexis McAllister. But also, I think the X factor here in a player is Julian Alvarez, who's been playing really well for Atletico Madrid, to the point this summer there's already a feud between Real Madrid and Barcelona is going to spend 150 million euros on him to get him to play for their team. So this could be his big breakout moment, where he potentially will be the one that scores the most goals for Argentina instead of Messi, because I said Messi's on a decline a bit, but Julian Alvarez is on the incline, becoming better and better. So, with that, what do I think? I think anything but quarterfinals is a failure. I think they're going to make it to the semifinals. I can even see them making to the finals. What's hard is the talent level of Spain and France, I think, are so much higher this time around than Argentina because of the age of Messi and because of some of their players that have retired that did matter in that last World Cup. So, But will the heat and humidity be an X factor? I think what's going to be hardest for Argentina and them winning this whole thing is if the Europeans adapt to the weather, or the coaches figure out tactics for those last 20 minutes of games where they're starting to get exhausted, or is Messi and Argentina playing in a covered stadium, so that doesn't even factor, so the team's in full force. So I really think the elements are going to play at a huge level to their success, and just the right opponents. Who are they facing along the way? So I can see them in a final, but like for my own brackets, I see them as a semifinal team, and nothing more. Because I think there's just more talented teams out there than them, which is weird. It's always hard to say when you talk about those types of things, because it's like the gap is not much, but that much can be a massive factor if you just have one or two players that really are an X factor, and that can affect things. Now this next team is Algeria, and last time they were at a World Cup was in 2014. They made to the round of 16. That's the farthest they've ever made. But recently they've made to the quarterfinals of AFCON, and they're 2019 champions. So because there's a lot of teams before this World Cup where the expanded teams happened. There's only 6 teams from Africa, and Africa is a massive continent. So, before this expansion, it was always considered that Africa had the hardest qualification for the World Cup. But in this expanded format, it's now South America is a clear favorite. Because in the old ways, always there was good teams that did not make it, that you thought deserved to be there. And I think Algeria is one of those. Hasn't made it since 2014. And the same thing can be said about Egypt. Egypt sporadically made it to the World Cup, even though they had players like Mo Salah. So in this expanded format, it allows more African teams to come through, and we get to see the quality of Africa here. So Algeria, I think they'll be one of those teams that does adapt to the heat well, being in northern Africa, very arid climate. It's just really the humidity. Will that play a factor? Because they can do the heat. Can they do the humidity as well? But they do. This will be his last tournament. But Riyad Mahrez will be leading this team. Plays for Al Ahly. But he was a factor in a lot of Manchester City's recent championships over the last, half decade, to the miraculous Leicester City Premier League title. He was on that team. So he is going to be a big catalyst to their attack. In the center of the park, you also have Nabil Bentaleb, who plays for Lille. He also has experience both in the Premier League and also in Germany as well. And then this whole team has a lot of players that have experience all across France and Germany. So I think you're going to, overall, compared to a lot of other African teams or Middle Eastern teams where they just kind of play in their home countries and kind of stick there, Algerians play all over the place and are constantly trying to compete and test themselves. So it'll be an interesting team. Now, because of the next team, though, I think third place is the honest place for them. But if they get the right draws, I could see them going all the way to the round of 16. Like I said, weather's an X factor for them, and they do. If they can break through on teams with some of their pace, I think they'll be a really tremendous force in this tournament. But round of 16 is we hit the right opponents, and then we're moving on. But if they get third place, more likely they'll face a first place team, and the odds of it being a strong European powerhouse, they can get knocked out with that. Now the next team, this is like one of the teams I'm looking forward to watching, and that's Austria. They're a team that is kind of like in that Swiss level, very strong, disciplined, tactically aware team, usually underrated, but they're really strong, especially under Ralph Ragnick as their coach, who's a very structured, tactical coach. And I think that's going to play in a lot here as they compete. Now, the best they've done in the World Cup was in 1954 in third place. But really, they haven't been to the World Cup since 98. And round of 16 was the farthest they've made, if you discount the third place there. But in the Euros recently, they've been making it to the round of 16 as well. But what gives me more hope about this team is since Ralph Rangnick has come in, they went undefeated in World Cup qualifying, and they look like a very disciplined team. I think that's what's going to push them. Not like a talent level, but this team is very disciplined and organized tactically, and how far will that take them? Because you have their captain is David Alba, who plays for Real Madrid. He has experience playing at Bayern Munich before, so he's played a lot of big games in the center back position and right back position. So he'll be sturdy in the back for them. And then you have another player like Conrad Lemire, who plays for or Lamar, however you pronounce it, plays for Bayern Munich, and he's a pretty versatile player, playing in the center of the park and the right back as well. And he plays for Bayern Munich, very experienced as well. And also Marcelo Sabatiers, I can never pronounce his name right, but he plays for Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga, and he's a player that played for us in Manchester United, which I wish we signed. He was on loan. So like they have a lot of strong leadership, mostly guys in their late 20s. So usually in soccer, like that 27, 29 is like where you're hitting your prime. So you have all these guys that are getting into their prime. This team's very organized and structured. So what can they do? Can they be dangerous to other teams? Can they push through? And majority of their players are playing mostly in the Bundesliga in Germany, so they're all playing at a pretty high level. There's a couple guys playing in France and Italy as well, and England. So a lot of their team is playing at a top level, so which is a big factor. But where I think they'll finish, I think round of 32, if they don't make it to the round of 32, that's going to be disappointing. I think it's a team that can make it to the round of 16, and against the right opponent, potentially quarters. But I think round of 16 is more realistic, where they pin the group. But I think what's really going to push them is their tactics. So, good tactics, they'll go far. If people break down their tactics, I think they at least have a good enough coach that can reorganize them, but it can be difficult in the situation. You're going to be playing one of the best teams. Now, the last team is kind of the happy to be here team, and also ruins the pattern, because we had Argentina, Algeria, Austria. Then we have Jordan. Not another A, I'm sorry. It could have been perfect. But Jordan, this is their first World Cup, which is exciting for them. But the thing is, like, for them also, they're coming off the AFC championship in second place. So Jordan are a team on the rise with their current generation. They have a lot of young players. And it'll be interesting. They didn't make it through the first round of World Cup qualifying with Asia. They came through the second round of the group stage. And so they'll be a team. They'll be interesting to watch. Kind of happy to be here. But can they be a threat? Could this be a thing where, like, this gets these young players some good experience? We've talked about that before with other teams. Just they're getting experience at this World Cup for the next one. But they do have they hit this trend in a lot of these Middle Eastern teams where they have their number one goalkeeper has been there for a long time. That's Yazid Abulula. Probably mispronounced that, and I apologize. But these goalkeepers that have are solid and know the team, have been there a long time. And for goalkeeping, that's a good thing. So your players know your tendencies, how you distribute, and all of that. But then they have an interesting player, Musa Al-Tamari, plays for Rennes. He's their captain. He plays for Rennes in Ligue 1. And he'll be the one leading the attack. So this could be a real breakout tournament for him in leading this Jordan team. I think they'll be grouped, but if they can make it to the third place, they can be difficult against Algeria and Austria. Take some points off of them. Why can't they make a third place finish? But I don't see them past the round of 32. Like I said, I think it's a good experience for their young players, and that'll be huge for this group of players. So it's just an average group, I think, in this World Cup. But like I said, I think Austria is a very interesting team, and I'm curious to see what they do. But other than that, Argentina will probably have a cakewalk through this group, unless Austria is a nuisance for them. Algeria, can they be more than what they've been lately? Who knows? So that's kind of this group at the World Cup. I'll see you tomorrow as we get on to Group K and my favorite to win the World Cup. So you can look at the group ahead of time and kind of figure that out. But I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.